From the News Channel 5 Network, this is SportsLine.
Welcome inside to SportsLine, everybody, right here on News Channel 5 Plus. Jon Burton with you as we inch closer to the Tennessee Titans AFC Divisional Playoff game against the Cincinnati Bengals. 3:30 kickoff Saturday at Nissan Stadium. You can, of course, watch the game over on News Channel 5. Coming up Friday at 6:30 over on News Channel 5, we'll have our Road to the Championship special. We'll be live at Nissan Stadium to get you ready for this big playoff matchup. And in just a couple of minutes, we are going to hear from Jim Wyatt from TitansOnline.com. While we wait to get connected with him, enjoy this interview that our own Steve Lehman did with a rising star for the Tennessee Titans, inside linebacker David Long Jr.
And David Long joins us now. David, you guys talked all offseason about the need for the defense to step up and play better. How did the D regain its swagger this season?
I would say, before the season, there was a lot of speculation about, how we're going to look with all the new pieces and stuff. But I had said earlier in the year that, we wasn't really worried about it. We knew we had the guys, to make it happen. We knew that the players coming in were, were great players. And, that they fit the locker room right away once they got in. Bud, Jack Rabbit, all those guys. We just became a family. Everybody's just close knit, and we all love to play ball. We all got the same mentality out there. Like the dog mentality. Hunting for the ball and stuff like that. So it all worked out.
One of the guys who took the most criticism last year was Shane Bowen, who officially got the defensive coordinator title in the offseason. How instrumental was he in the progress of this defense in year two?
Very instrumental. I would say, just staying on this, staying on top of us, asking us questions, make sure everybody's head is in the right place. And, everybody, has their keys right. Everybody's ready to play, come game day. So, he's been, right there along the way, just making sure, keeping everybody on the same page.
All right, that's a little bit of Steve Lehman's interview with David Long Jr. Time permitting, we will show you that interview in its entirety. But right now, without further ado, we can't keep the man waiting. He is Nashville's own Jimmy Wyatt, the senior writer, editor for TitansOnline.com, kind enough to join us. Jimmy, I know you're super busy. You got interviews lined up all over the country, probably all over the world. We appreciate a couple of minutes tonight, buddy.
I appreciate you having me, JB. It's an exciting time, these playoffs, so I'm ready for this game to get here now.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. These big playoff matchups. I covered a bunch when I was in Buffalo and obviously in Pittsburgh, and we were along for the ride 2 years ago when the Titans made it all the way to the AFC Championship game. As the number one seed this year, obviously, perhaps an easier path to the ultimate destination, which is the Super Bowl, but we'll wait and see on that. All right, the big news today, we'll get to Saturday's matchup with the Bengals in just a second, but the big news today, obviously, Derrick Henry addressing the media. Still nothing official yet. He has not been added to the Titans' active roster. That seems to be just a mere formality at this point. He has been practicing the last couple of years. You and I were there when Derrick took to the podium. He looked relaxed. He looked ready to go. And, he always looks good physically. The guy's a specimen. But you've seen him in practice. How has he looked, and how did he come across today when he spoke?
Yeah, you can tell this is a guy who's chomping a bit to play. If he doesn't play, it's a big guy who'll be surprised more than anybody's going to be Derrick Henrys, because this is what he's worked for since he was injured back on October the 31st. And it wasn't easy. He talked about that today, just how difficult it was not being a part of it, not working through the week with your teammates, looking forward to a game on Sunday. Got a lot of support from his teammates, his coaches, the trainers, fans, his girlfriend who had to drive him to the facility 5 weeks in a row when he couldn't drive himself. And really it was all done so he could be back for the playoffs. And here we are now, just a couple of days away from the Titans beginning the postseason, and Derrick Henry has kind of built, they kind of build up to this. First get him healthy enough to run, and then him running, and then him being in a position where he could return to practice, and then you got to build up the conditioning again, and you got to get comfortable with your teammates again, and then you got to start making cuts on it. Then you put the pads on, and it's just all been a process. And now I think he's passed every test in his mind and in the eyes of coaches and trainers. And the big question now is not if he's going to play, just how much is he going to play? How effective can he be? What will the distribution of carries look like between him and the other backs, and just how much will they need him? And those are questions that are going to play out for us at Nissan Stadium on Sunday at 3:30.
Yeah, no doubt.
Saturday at 3:30.
Yeah, Saturday at 3:30.
Sunday at 3:30. I'll miss the game. So I guess Saturday at 3:30. We're going to start to get some of those answers.
Yeah, no question about it. And Jimmy, you were on my radio show with Greg Pogue yesterday, and we talked about it. You know, just because Henry's back, and that's great for the Titans, that's great news, obviously, for this organization and their fan base. You know, I don't think Todd Downing or Mike Vrabel should forget about Deontay Foreman and Dontrell Hilliard. Those guys did a really nice job filling in for the King. You know, it took two guys to fill in for one guy, but, you know, I go back to 2008 with my team, the New York Giants, when they had that three-headed monster at running back. You know, they had Brandon Jacobs and Derek Ward and Ahmad Bradshaw. I could see a similar situation here with the Titans. 3 running backs, but 3 guys that bring a little something different to the table.
Yeah, and that's intriguing to think about that, you know, and as far as, you know, Derek, or how he fits in the equation, that's the most intriguing and interesting part of it, because we all know, you know, part of the reason Derrick Henrys had so much success is because he has been allowed to get to a rhythm. He's been allowed to kind of wear opponents down. He's gotten 25, 30 carries in a lot of games, and that kind of takes its toll on the other team. Now, if he's splitting carries, will he be able to be as effective? I mean, that kind of, I guess we'll find out what the approach is moving forward. But you know, you look at the production from the backs in the running game with Derrick Henry and then without Derrick Henry, and the numbers are very similar. You don't have the breakaway threat with Foreman. Maybe Hilliard gives you that, but Henry gives you a little bit something there, and just the kind of that battering ram approach he takes, I think he gives you something different there. But I don't know. I could see a scenario where they're using 2 backs more than 3, just because, you know, I think you've got to let him get his touches and feeling like himself. You know, but just how that comes, what part of the game that comes in, how early they try to feed him, you know, I think everybody's kind of anxious to find out.
Jimmy Wyatt is our guest, senior writer, editor from TitansOnline.com, kind enough to join us here on SportsLine. And when you look at the Bengals, Jimmy, obviously, arguably their best run stopper, interior lineman Larry Ogunjobi for the Bengals, not going to be available to play on Saturday. So this may be the perfect time for Derrick Henry to come back and play a Bengals team that, you know, obviously is going to be down a couple of players. And you look at their defense as a whole. They've given up some points, and you know they've been okay in spots. But really, the strength of this football team is their offense, led by their young quarterback Joe Burrow. This guy's, you know, when you look at quarterback and weapons, I think the Bengals are about as good as any team you'll see. Everybody talks about the Cowboys and some of these other teams, but man, you got Joe Burrow, you've got you know, Jamar Chase, obviously, you got Boyd, you've got a lot of weapons. Their tight end. Uzoma is really good. I mean, this is going to be a challenge for the Titans defense. You remember the game last year where Burrow picked them apart because Titans had absolutely no pass rush and couldn't get off the field on 3rd down. This is a situation where they're going to need to put some pressure on Joe Burrow. If he's got all day to throw, there's a possibility he could pick the Titans defense apart.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy the talent they've got. I mean, I was looking at, you know, kind of doing some prep work for this. I mean, the Bengals are the first team ever with a 4,000-yard passer in Burrow, a couple of 1,000-yard rusher, and Mixon, 2 1,000-yard receivers, and Chase and Higgins under the age of 26. I mean, that's an impressive stat, and it's probably something that scares teams in the AFC North, because these guys aren't going anywhere. And you know, if the Titans are going to have success on Sunday, I keep saying Sunday, it's Saturday. They keep having success on Saturday. They're going to have to be able to get some pressure on him. And that was at the game in Cincinnati last year when Burrow just kind of sat back there. That was on a Sunday, and it was an ugly Sunday, and he just kind of picked them apart. I mean, the Titans had no answers. They didn't hardly touch him in that game, and so the Titans are going to have to generate some pressure. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of balls batted down at the line of scrimmage, but you can kind of get some pressure on him either up the middle or on the outside to get him on the move, and then that's got to be the plan. I mean, the Bengals, as good as Mixon's been, they haven't run him a whole lot lately. I'll be curious to see what their plan is. I mean, they pretty much just I was talking to a buddy of mine in Cincinnati earlier, just saying they're pretty much like the Warren Moon days, where you're just driving back and throwing on every play, and that's kind of what they're doing. The Titans need to have some answers there to kind of keep them from getting into a good rhythm and flow.
Yeah, but Jimmy, the good news is I really like what I've seen from Bud Dupree the last few games. It feels like he's finally 100% healthy. He's looked pretty spry the last few weeks. He hasn't, the numbers aren't there, the sack numbers, but man, he's getting around the corner, he's beating his man, and he's putting a lot of heavy pressure on the quarterback. So that hopefully is a good sign for the Titans going forward that Bud Dupree is, feeling pretty frisky.
Yeah, I mean, people look at his sack numbers and think, well, he hadn't really lived up to the bargain. And certainly the best for him is yet to come. Another year removed from that knee surgery. He'll be even better next year and years to come. But when he's played this year, I think he's been good. And he does bring energy. He does make an impact. He's a guy you have to account for. And whether he's getting there or not, he's taking some pressure off of the Jeffrey Simmonses and the Nico Autry's and the Harold Landry. So you put all those guys together, and that's the reason why this team's been able to have so much success rushing the quarterback. And it's not just one guy. I mean, Landry with 12 sacks, Autry with 9, Simmons with 8.5, Bud kind of wreaking some havoc in there himself, and that's what they're going to need to have happen on Saturday at 3:30.
There you go, Jimmy. You got the day and time right. Finish it out Saturday 3:30 on News Channel 5, right?
That's right. You better be ready and make sure you check out that post game on News Channel 5 too.
Yes, sir. Yours truly and Steve Lehman live from the stadium with all your post game activities going on. Hopefully, talking about a Titans playoff win. All right, Jimmy, the 800-pound gorilla in the room, Ryan Tannehill. You talk about the quarterbacks that are left in the playoffs. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. We talked about Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. Probably one of the last guys mentioned of the 8 teams left and the 8 starting quarterbacks left is Ryan Tannehill. And the book is still out as to whether or not, he can carry a team or play winning playoff football. Obviously, he did a couple of years ago, getting to the AFC Championship game, but he had a lot of help from Derrick Henry. Where are you at with Tannehill, and do you think he has the stuff to lead the Titans ultimately where they want to go?
I think he does. I mean, a lot's going to depend on what's around him, and they got to protect him better. He's been sacked too much this year, and part of that is because they played with so many different combinations on that offensive line. But 47 sacks in 17 games is a lot. Now, the last couple of games, only 2 sacks. He went through a really rough patch that ended with a 4-interception game against the Texans. We all know all those picks weren't his fault, but still, he made some bad decisions. But if you look at the last 6 games here, he's 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's been a lot better. He's got Julio Jones and A.J. Brown healthy. We just talked about Derrick Henry, who's healthy and in his back. So I think things set up well for Tannehill just to distribute the football, and he can hurt you with his legs. He can make some throws downfield. I do think he gets a bad rap nationally from people who think he can't do it without Derrick Henry, and here we are talking about the number 1 seeded Titans who played without Derrick Henry for half the year. So he's going to have to play well. He's going to have to avoid making mistakes again, and they've got to be good around him. But, I've seen some quarterbacks win Super Bowls that are not as talented as Ryan Tannehill. It's going to take a team effort for the Titans to get there. First thing they got to do is beat the Bengals, but Tannehill is the guy they believe in. Coaches, teammates, everybody in that building, and I certainly think he believes in himself.
No question, Jimmy, and we always believe in you. Thanks. I know you got some more interviews lined up throughout the night. We appreciate a couple of minutes, and I look forward to seeing you Saturday at Nissan Stadium for this big playoff game. It's a lot of fun. You're Nashville born and raised. I know you live for games like this.
I do. Yeah, it's exciting. I'm sure, around kickoff when I see that see the stands packed and just see the excitement of the city. I mean, as a kid growing up, I never dreamed we'd have an NFL team here, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to work for the NFL team after covering for 20-something years. So these moments don't come along that often unless you're a Patriots fan. Titans and Mike Vrabel hoping to build on this. Well, this is kind of an annual deal, but it's been a while since Titans haven't been the #1 seed since 2008, so they're in a good spot, but guarantees you nothing. Last two times the Titans were the #1 seed, they didn't do very well, so they have to play well, and I think this team will be ready to play on Saturday at 3:30.
Jimmy, you're the best. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, man.
Okay, have a good night, JB.
All right, there he is, the great Jim Wyatt joining us from TitansOnline.com. You can follow him on Twitter at JWyattSports, and of course, go to TitansOnline.com. It is a must for every Titans fan. All right, we're going to take our first break. We come back, we are going to hear from the man of the day, Derrick Henry, speaking to the media for the first time since his injury back on Halloween. Looks like he's locked, loaded, and ready to go for the playoffs. Stay with us here on SportsLine.